So within the next 15-20 minutes, I will try to show you and explain you how the last results of the RESPECT project can bring some interesting insights with regard to the current EU Battery Directive and Critical Raw Materials Act. So it might be the most technical presentation of today, so I hope you're ready. Just to come back, so Justo has already introduced the project, but I wanted to come back on the technical concept we want to demonstrate in the RESPECT project. We really want to develop the complete battery recycling process, covering all the process steps of the value chain, and we want to bring innovation at each of these process steps. It starts with the deactivation of end-of-life battery modules. We are quite convinced that the current state-of-the-art technologies will have big challenges and difficulties in the future to discharge all the diversity of modules available on the market, and we try here to bring a solution on this. Second important point is the pretreatment part. Usually we have a lot of intensive crushing and thermal treatment approaches to do the pretreatment of batteries once they are discharged. Here we try to avoid as much as possible the use of thermal treatment approaches and crushing to allow already a good separation of the different components contained in the batteries at this pretreatment level. So we managed to separate copper, aluminium, binder, lithium, and we have two main output fractions, which is a fraction containing graphite and a second fraction containing mostly cathode active materials, which can be mostly NMC or LFP depending on the input material. For the graphite, we have then one partner, Vianode, located in Norway, who is responsible for the regeneration of this fraction for then reuse as new anode materials. Regarding the treatment of the cathode active materials fraction that we could call also black mass, we have two different routes here. The first one is the low impact hydrometallurgical treatment. So we will put into solution the metals contained in this fraction, and then we will do some separation to produce battery grade sulfate salts that then can be reused to produce new cathode active materials. There is an alternative route to valorize this cathode active materials fraction, which is the direct recycling. And here we try to avoid to put into solution we work to demonstrate the different technologies is that academical partners and universities determine operating conditions for the different process steps. And then we have, for all of these process steps, a pilot equipment at the site of one of these or our industrial partner that allows us to demonstrate the technologies on real input material. I will quickly come back to the recovery targets that are set in the project. So our project will end in 2026, and we target to recover around 95% of cobalt, manganese, nickel, 90% of graphite, and 75% of lithium. For the cobalt and nickel, these targets are close to the one from the EU Battery Directive for 2031. Same for lithium. And for the graphite, there is currently today no recovery target that is set in the legislation. So the results of RESPECT at the end of the project will give a good feedback on the feasibility or not of the future targets for 2031. I will now bring to you three main messages at different stage of the recycling process. The first message learning is about the recovery of high quality graphite during the pretreatment. Last results have shown that this is possible to recover a really high quality graphite fraction quite early in the process. And this is quite a good news for Europe because we have seen during the presentation of Maria that there was only 3% of graphite that comes from a recycled source in Europe. For battery application, it's probably even lower. So graphite source from battery recycling processes could be potentially used in the future to supply the needs for anode materials in Europe. Where does this affirmation come from? So we have performed 2 pilot tests in the project. The first one was a pilot test on production waste, anode production waste provided by the cell manufacturer involved in the project, Moro. So we received 15 kilos of this fraction. You have a rough idea of the material composition, so around 65% of carbon content and 28% of copper from the copper foil. We have applied the process developed in the RESPECT project, and we managed to separate a really high quality of graphite with this single process step separation with more than 99% of graphite content. Some samples of this fraction have been then sent to Vianode, and Vianode is currently doing some characterization of this fraction to validate that this can be reused for the manufacturing of new anode materials. The first feedback are really promising, and Vianode is convinced that this graphite source can be used to produce new anode materials. The second test that has been conducted is related to a more complex waste stream, which is end-of-life battery. As I said, we have developed a new approach to get access to the active materials contained in batteries. So here is the result of a test conducted on a discharged BMW E3 module. Orano has performed on its site a first process step developed in the project to extract, without crushing and without thermal treatment, the electrodes contained in the module. So we managed to get access to around 15 kilos of this electrode. And then a second step was applied to start a first separation of graphite and cathode active materials, are also performed by Orano. 2 main fractions are the output of this process. The first one at the top is the cathode active material fraction. You have a rough idea of the material composition also, with only 12% of carbon content in this fraction, which is way lower than the content we find in conventional black mass. In conventional black mass, you find more 40 to 50% of carbon content. The second fraction is the graphite fraction, with around 65% of carbon content and some residual impurities with around 20 to 30% of metallic impurities. Some samples of this graphite fraction have also been sent to Norway to Vianode to check if the quality is okay for reuse as anode materials in the future. First feedback is also quite positive. And as I said earlier, these results are good news for Europe about the possibility to recycle graphite in the future. We don't talk about the economics now, but it could be a subject for the panel discussion. But at least from a technical point of view, it seems feasible to recover high quality graphite from batteries. Second message of today is related to the next part of the recycling process, so the low impact hydrometallurgical treatment. Here we have demonstrated that we managed to produce high quality leachate that can be used to produce battery grade salts. However, we have observed some significant losses in the pilot test that was conducted, and we need to keep that in mind for the future. Here are the results of the test that has been conducted. So in terms of organization for this hydrometallurgical part, all the operating conditions have been determined by Aalto University in Finland and Chalmers University. And then the company Mezzo has a pilot line for hydrometallurgical treatment in Finland for the 3 first process steps of the hydrometallurgical treatment. And a pilot test was performed in Finland for these 3 process steps: the leaching, the copper separation, and the aluminum and iron impurity removal. The input material for this test was 100 kilo of black mass that was produced by Orano. So you also have here an idea of the composition of this black mass with low amount of impurities compared to standard black mass, only 0.5% of aluminum. What is interesting here is to see what are the different losses for the most interesting metals contained in the black mass at each of these process steps. And if we check for nickel and cobalt with this test, we have more than 5% of losses, around 7% for nickel and 5.5% for the cobalt. So with regard to the targets of the EU Battery Directive in 2031, with 95% of recovery for nickel and cobalt, for this test, we don't manage to reach this 95%. Good news is that we reached the 90%, which is set in the legislation for 2027. But the 95% might be challenging in the future for recyclers. Of course, it is only a first pilot test result. We still have 2 years in the project to further optimize the process and improve this recovery and reduce the losses in the hydrometallurgical process. However, I think it's important to keep this dialogue between recyclers, policymakers about the feasibility of the targets that are set in the legislation. And to finish and conclude, last key message now on another part of the process, the direct recycling one. It's not directly related to achievement of the recovery targets from the EU, but direct recycling is a fascinating topic, and I thought it's a good opportunity to discuss this. So the message was direct recycling opportunity to secure cathode active materials in Europe or not. Just one slide to reintroduce the concept of direct recycling. So the idea is to say that in black mass, we have a lot of intact cathode active materials. Can we find a way to directly reuse these cathode active materials contained in this black mass and avoid all the process steps of the hydrometallurgical treatment? From a theoretical and utopical point of view, if we manage to do so, we could have less process steps than in the hydrometallurgical treatment. If we have less process steps, we could also imagine to have lower cost with direct recycling approach. And if we have lower costs, it could be also a way for Europe to have solution to recycle low-cost chemistries such as LFP, where current hydrometallurgical treatment technologies will have some challenges to propose a competitive solution. Last point is also quite critical for hydrometallurgical treatment is the amount of wastewater generated. With direct recycling and process with less intensive in water, we could have also a decrease of the amount of wastewater needed for the process. Also, another remark more related to the critical materials aspect. If we manage to do direct recycling, it means that we will manage to have directly an output which is cathode active materials. And it means we are already a bit higher in the value chain than with the output of a standard hydrometallurgical process where we will produce battery-grade salts. And I remember a discussion with Franz during one of the advisory board meeting of the RESPECT project, saying that it's challenging today for some of the OEMs to secure LFP from China due to some tensions. If we have a solution with direct recycling to directly recycled LFP, it could also help from a supply point of view the European Union. Quick conclusion on the 3 messages that were mentioned in the presentation. So if we come back to graphite, we have shown within the first 2 years of the project that with innovation in pretreatment, we managed to separate graphite early in the process. The ongoing quality check, but this is good news for Europe, and we could maybe try to promote a bit more this graphite recycling to limit our dependency to China for the supply of battery-grade graphite. Regarding the hydrometallurgical treatment, high purity leachate production is possible, and we will manage to have battery-grade sulfate salts in Europe. However, we should not underestimate the amount of losses that could be generated in the process. The results I've shown are only for 3 of the process steps, but in the battery recycling process, we have in total more than 20, 30 process steps. So we could have also some additional losses all over the value chain. And regarding the direct recycling part, well, some work is necessary to further purify this material, but it is definitely for Europe a topic which is interesting and attractive, and we should promote even more this direct recycling approach. And if in the future we manage to reach good performance with directly recycled CAM, it could help us to reduce our dependency to the import of cathode active materials from other countries. Thank you very much, and thank you to all the RESPECT partners for their input and contribution to this presentation. Thank you.